Hey, what's up folks? Today we're going to go off on a tangent. I'm going to tell a little story about a jog I took this morning, and we're going to talk about King of the Oathbreakers and some rules surrounding this fascinating commander. Alright, listen man, sometimes I like to take a little jog around my neighborhood. Got to keep this old carcass in shape. This particular morning, this very morning, I was walking out of my house and what do I behold in my path, brother? I behold an old woman walking a little dog. This little dog was a brown poodle mixed with maybe Dachshund or something like that. He was wagging his tail and honestly, the dog was smiling at me, I swear to God. I asked if he was friendly and the old lady nodded. I don't know if she spoke English or not, but she kind of seemed to understand what I was saying. So I held out my hand to this little fella so he could kind of check me out. And he just dove under my hand, belly first, for some scratches and some nice little pets. And magic cards are like small dogs. You see a new commander come out, he's like your new best friend. But you have to familiarize yourself with the rules surrounding the hot new legend. That's what we're doing today. So listen man, first things first before we get too deep into the King of the Oathbreakers. There are like 15,000 people who check me out every week, but make sure you're subscribing, dude. And you can go buy me a coffee at the link in the description if you want, like all my kind supporters out there. You guys are much appreciated and I love you very much. Alright, here we go. King of the Oathbreakers, 2 white and black for a legendary creature, Spirit Noble. It's a 3/3 with flying. Whenever this guy or another spirit you control becomes the target of a spell, it phases out. Whenever King of the Oathbreakers or another spirit you control phases in, create a tapped 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. This ability is pretty bonkers, dude. You can cast a board wipe and in response, target your own stuff, it phases out, and you come back much stronger. Before we go to some includes for the deck, let's take a look at the rules behind this fascinating commander. So let's talk about phasing a little bit first. Rule 702.26a, phasing is a static ability that modifies the rules of the untap step. During each player's untap step, before the active player untaps permanents, all phased in permanents with phasing that player controls phase out. Simultaneously, all phased out permanents that had phased out under that player's control phase in. Permanents phase back in during their controller's untap step immediately before that player untaps their permanents. Creatures that phase in this way are able to attack and pay a cost of tap during that turn. If a permanent had counters on it when it phased out, it'll have those counters when it phases back in. So also remember, players don't get priority until the upkeep step. So anything that triggered in the untap step where players never get priority simply waits until the upkeep step to be put on the stack, along with any upkeep triggered abilities. 502.4, no player receives priority during the untap step, so no spells can be cast or resolved and no abilities can be activated or resolved. Any ability that triggers during this step will be held until the next time a player would receive priority, which is usually during the upkeep step. And rule 603.2, whenever a game event or game state matches a triggered ability's trigger event, that ability automatically triggers. The ability doesn't do anything at this point, it's just triggered. Rule 603.3, once an ability has triggered, its controller puts it on the stack as an object that's not a card the next time a player would receive priority. See Rule 117 timing and priority for all that. The ability becomes the topmost object on the stack. It has the text of the ability that created it and no other characteristics. It remains on the stack until it's countered, it resolves, a rule causes it to be removed from the stack, or an effect moves it elsewhere. So all that is a fancy way of saying when this guy and his spirit friends phase back in, that triggered ability goes on the stack, but doesn't resolve until the upkeep step. Because the upkeep step is the first time that anybody's going to get priority. That's when we get the tokens, and they don't untap until our next turn. The creatures that we phased out, the king and his spirit buddies, will untap as they phase back in before we untap. I did a whole video on phasing last year, but there are a great deal of idiosyncrasies involved with the mechanic. The first thing to know is that the tokens can phase in and out, unlike exiling or dying. Tokens are not changing zones, they can get to come along for the ride with the king. Equipment, auras, and counters also phase in and out. I will say this though, auras don't work with the king. Auras target on the stack, so if you try to put one on one of your spirits, it's going to phase out and the aura will fizzle. Mostly you want to be using instants that target your entire team. Take for example Heaven's Gate, 1 white mana for an instant. 1 or more target creatures becomes white until the end of turn. This is a $4 card from Legends. It's not on the reserve list that can phase out all your spirits for 1 mana. Then when they come back, they make some more spirits. How about this old guy, the Touch of Darkness, 1 black mana for an instant. 1 or more target creatures become black until end of turn. Similar card that's about $8, phases out your entire team for 1 black mana. How about some cards that aren't overcosted and 30 years old? Well, my friends, we have cards like Remedy. Remedy is 1 and a white for an instant. prevent the next 5 damage that would be dealt this turn to any number of targets divided as you choose. It's just Kramer from Seinfeld, dude. He's poking a little kid right in the eye, dude. That's real MTG, brother, and that's healthcare in the United States. But remember, take a look at the rulings. Cards like this have restrictions. You divide the prevention effects as you cast Remedy, not as it resolves. Each target must be assigned at least 1 prevention shield. You can't choose more than 5 targets and assign none to a target. So basically you can only phase out 5 of your creatures, which is still pretty rad. Now hold on, brother. Let's take a card like Path to Exile. 1 white mana for an instant. Exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield. Tap, then shuffle. If the target creature is an illegal target by the time Path to Exile tries to resolve, the spell won't resolve. The creature's controller won't search for a basic land card. So you have little cards like this where you want to target your own creatures, but they're not going to resolve. You're not going to get that benefit of getting the land. That's the way it goes for most spells. If a target becomes illegal, say if it's phased out, like our creatures do, it won't resolve. Most of the time, if at least 1 target is legal as the spell resolves, it's still going to resolve though. If all the targets become illegal, then it fizzles. Alright, so let's talk about some includes you may want to consider for your King of the Oathbreakers decks that you may not see on the EDH rec page. We got the Orc Sure Shot out there, 3 and a black for a creature, Orc Archer, it's a 4/2. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature and opponent controls get -1/-1 until end of turn. This doesn't care if the creature entering is a token and doesn't care when they come in. This guy looks like that one orc from Lord of the Rings that perforated Boromir, and this is a great little control piece if you're making lots of tokens. How about the old Mace of the Valiant, dude? 2 and a white for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on this thing and has vigilance. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a charge counter on this guy. It has equipped for 3. If the plan is to make a bunch of spirit tokens as your guys are bing-bonging out of the phasing zone there, then this little mace is going to come in handy. Remember, equipment attached to a creature that phases out goes with it through the Christmas miracle of indirect phasing. How about a new card, an uncommon from the Lord of the Rings set? We have Shadow Summoning. 1 white, 1 black mana for a sorcery. Create 2 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. Very efficient uncommon for the new set. This guy's trying to cancel his Netflix, dude. He's arguing with a bunch of spirit councils out there. You gotta convince the spirit council before you can cancel your subscription. Alright, this guy is definitely on the EDH rec page, but Hirobi Death's Wail. 2 black for a creature, legendary creature spirit. It's a 4/4 with flying. Whenever a creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, destroy that creature. This guy was made for this deck, but it was made 20 years ago. Look at this guy, he's just out there wailing in the night, dude. Just like when I had to break up with my ex-girlfriend, she went around doing a Death's Wail, dude. You control both triggers on this, so you can stack them any way you want. Phase your dudes out first, and they won't die. This is a decently efficient 4/4 with flying for 4 as well. Not bad. Oh man, look at this art that they had back in the old days, dude. Infernal Kieran, 2 black for a legendary creature. Kieran Spirit, it's a 3/3 with flying. Whenever you cast a spirit or arcane spell, which we don't have any of in this deck, target player reveals their hand and discards all cards with that spell's mana value. This is just a cool flying horse, dude. Every 8-year-old girl's dream pet. Brother, check out the Haunted one over here. 2 and a black for a legendary enchantment background. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, it and other creatures you control that share a creature type with it each get +2/+0 and gain Undying until end of turn. Cheap, efficient anthems like this are fantastic. You're going to close out the game 3 times quicker because you'll have an army of little flyers if all is going according to plan. And Sarah Redeemer's a cool little include. 3 white for a legendary creature, Angel Soldier. It's a 2/4 with flying. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, put 2 +1/+1 counters on that creature. This might be a little expensive for this deck, but this is an anthem for all your spirits, a permanent buff in the form of counters that can phase out and back in with your tokens. Cauldron Haze, 1 and a hybrid white-black for an instant. Choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains Persist until end of turn. These 2 are striking a pose, dude. They're auditioning for some erotic rap video, heretofore unreleased by Tupac. Drumbeller are also tailor-made for this deck. 2 and a white for a creature spirit. It's a 2/1 with flying. Untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. This is the kid next door whose mom got him a drum set for Christmas. Now he's making a racket all up in the neighborhood. This guy's blasting all your creatures out of their stupor with the sweet drum solos, brother. And of course the old Windborn Muse, 3 and a white for a creature spirit. It's a 2/3 with flying. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. This lady looks like she's getting ready to bring back Prohibition, dude. I don't like the looks of her. A couple cards like this, little stacks effects, tax effects, are nice with this commander. How about the old Staff of the Storyteller, dude? 1 and a white for an artifact. When Staff of the Storyteller enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Whenever you create 1 or more creature tokens, put a story counter on this little Staff of the Storyteller. As white and tap, remove a story counter from this guy, draw a card. Look at this old toad out here. He's just showing you a sweet stick, dude, he found in the woods. That's what Magic is all about. This is a decent little draw engine that pays off all of our tokens. Anyways, this is an interesting commander. I kind of went down the rabbit hole looking for cards that can target unlimited creatures, and there really aren't that many. Honestly, you're probably best off getting Hirobi out there and lots of cheap targeting effects to protect him and your commander. Seems like a really fun deck though, man. I wanted to spend a few minutes on rules interactions here and dive into phasing a little bit. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay safe out there. This is Sneaky G from Better Commander signing off.